Welcome back to NewsPoints on the Air, a production of the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists. I'm your host, Milan Medley. I know it's been a little while since we've put out an episode, and I am so grateful for your patience and for coming back for this episode. We really appreciate it over here at the Division. There's been a lot happening, and that's why it's taken us a little while, but we're back. And with being back, we're going to start to wind down season 1, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit toward the end of the episode. So make sure you stick around and listen all the way to the end. All right, so today's guest is Norma Nashed. She is the founder and president of Restore a Child. It is a nonprofit organization that is geared toward helping children living in poverty and war-stricken areas of the world, giving them food, giving them education. Norma is so passionate about helping children in need, and that all stems from her childhood, growing up or being born in Palestine and growing up in Jordan. Norma, thank you so much for your time and for coming on the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to talk, to share.
Yes. So let's get started. Can you tell us a bit about your background, where you were born and where you were raised?
You know, I was born in a town called Ramallah, in what they call now Palestine, but it's not a country yet. And Ramallah at the moment is the capital of the National Palestinian Organization. So, but they do have other offices around, like one in Jericho. But Ramallah is becoming an important part for the Palestinian authorities, actually.
Wow.
And so, yes, I was born there because my parents are Palestinians, my mom and my dad, and this is where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they were not very poor at that time. But the homes before, some of them were, for me, it was beautiful. I considered them. But it is like in a small cave, all rocks inside.
Wow.
Where I was born was exactly what you call the upper room. So I identify with Jesus because it was 2 sections. One, the lower part, you could not even stand up straight, so low, hewn in the rock. And then there are maybe 6 steps that take you up to the upper room where people live. And downstairs is the kitchen, goats, chicken, that everything.
Wow. And this is all where the kitchen is. That's where you can barely stand up straight.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. You can't, you have to be always bending down.
Oh my goodness. What a visual. Wow. And how long did you live there?
I think just maybe a year, because my dad was working in Jordan and my mom came, to have me delivered in my country.
Okay.
He had a good job in Jordan. So yeah, we were not refugees, but we lived with the refugees. Because, how my father spent the money, we were poor. So we lived with the refugees.
So can you describe some of your earliest memories from your time living in Jordan?
In Jordan, yeah. Well, in Palestine, I really loved being there because at that time, on Sunday, all the the bells start ringing. The population was 90% Christians. Now it's 10%.
This is in Jordan?
No, I'm talking about, I said about where I was.
Oh, in Palestine.
Okay. Where I was born, in Ramallah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so in Jordan, we had, we became later 7 kids and 2 parents. So 9 people living in one small room,
Wow.
sleeping on the cement floor,
Mm.
no electricity, no kitchen, hardly anything. It was tough life. We had to endure. And at age 8, I had to walk to school like 3 miles and back 3 miles because we had no money to pay for the bus. Then as we were growing, more kids, my mom could not pay for us to go to the school. So at age 10, I had to clean the school with my sister every day after school. Everybody leaves and we stayed. We swept the floors and all dusty and it's not like here. And then we had to mop. And in winter we had freezing water. I remember my fingers would freeze. I couldn't do the mop.
Wow. And were you still walking 3 miles
Yes, and then
and
walking.
then you would stay to clean and then walk back those three
That was,
miles? Wow. At 10
yes,
years old.
10 years old. So when they talk now about labor, child labor in refugee camps,
Hmm.
that's nothing to me. I was living with the refugees, and I had to work as a child labor. Child labor.
And
I,
that's so you could go to school there to
yes,
help.
be able
Yeah.
to go to school.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing, for to be so young and have to do all of that. So,
Yeah.
were you aware of your Palestinian background? What was your understanding of because what's happening in the region now may be different in some way from the time period you're talking about. But when you were a child, what was your understanding of what was going on in your homeland?
So my understanding, because I'm a Christian,
Yeah.
and we believe we are taught to love each other, love
Hmm.
God, and love your neighbor. So I love the Muslims and I love the Jews. We never had problem with the Jews. My grandparents taught me to love the Jews because if you want to live in peace, you have to be
Mm.
peaceful.
Your
And
grandparents taught you that.
yeah, because I lived with them for 1 year in Jericho,
Oh, okay.
taught
Wow.
me so much about love, and they used to, give their Jewish families, they give them food. They in the time of trouble when there was actually before I was born. This was in the 1936, 1939, and they hid like 10 people in their attic when they were persecuted by the Arabs. They were going to be killed. My
Wow.
parents, because they were their neighbors and they were very good. Both sides were peaceful. And so just because somebody hates them, you cannot just hate them. They were not doing anything for me, for us. And then I learned that from them. And then when my mom, you know, used to love the Jews, the Jewish neighbors, and she
Mm.
taught us to love the Jews and love. Now we are living not with the Jews, we are living with the Muslims, the Arabs. And so, we just had, beautiful time with everybody.
Wow. And you were instilled at a very early age to love,
Not
to,
discriminate anybody. Because, the Bible says we are created, the human
mhm,
being, in the image of God. So we are all important and we have
mhm,
infinite value in the, in the, in the, in front of God. So we
yeah.
cannot uh, think that we are better than others. We're all the same.
Wow. So did you travel back to Palestine how long did you live in Jordan, and how often, if any time, did you travel back to Palestine?
Yes, I did travel twice to Palestine because my sister is there, my cousins are there, I have family there.
Okay.
And in Jordan too, I went there. This is just before I started my ministry. And
Mm,
the reason I started ministry is because I had cancer.
wow.
And So I knew then that, I wanted to give my life to God by serving the poor and the orphans,
Mm.
because I was poor and I became orphan. My mother became blind widow at age 38,
Oh my
7
goodness.
orphans and penniless. This is how it is. But she was a woman of faith, a great woman, worked hard, taught us how to love and how to work hard. And so,
Wow, Norma, I am blown away with your story. And we're only at the beginning. We're only at the very beginning. Wow. Okay. Wow. Um, so when did you, because I want to stay there a little bit, when did you feel this desire to go and start your ministry? And we'll unpack what it is specifically later on, but when did you sense that God was kind of tapping you to do something bigger than yourself?
I always uh, had love for children.
Hmm.
Like, even I was a child. I was 12 years old, and I started to worry about the kids in my neighborhood who are, like younger, between the age of 5 and 12, my age. So I wanted to share what experience I had, spiritual experiences with them. And so I would bring them to my one room home
Mm-hmm.
and teach them and pray with them and sing and send them home and then bring
Wow.
12 more because our room was so small by myself.
And you were 12.
I was 12 years old
Oh my goodness.
and just bring more children. I felt sorry for the children
Yeah.
because they are innocent and they want to learn and they don't know anything. So my job, I felt that I needed to impact them, impact their lives.
And were
And
they orphans too?
no,
Or
no,
no, they were just
just
your
poor in my
in
environment.
your neighborhood.
When there is conflict or civil war or how it is,
Yeah.
children always suffer.
Yeah. So let's even talk about that some more. Of how the crisis and even other crises that are similar, perhaps around the world, and this can help us like broaden and even talk about your work,
Yes.
how government unrest and violence, how that affects children.
Oh my. You know, uh, we work in 10 countries now, but I used to work in 20 countries before.
Mm,
And we have helped, it's my heart, for orphans and refugees. Refugees in Burma, on the border of Thailand.
okay.
Refugees in South Sudan, 20
Mm,
years civil war, where the fathers were killed. Not only they killed them, they then cut them into pieces. Oh, it's so gruesome. And then I personally went to there. I went to uh, Goma refugee camp in East Congo, the end of the
mm,
world, because I feel sorry for the refugees and for the children. And they were in a makeshift school, plastics. They had no food to eat. They were hungry. How can they study if they're hungry? So the school I visited, we started a nutrition program, a cooked meal every day for lunch so they can study. And honestly, at the end, 1,000 students in that school.
mm.
At the end of the year, I got a letter from the Ministry of Education in Congo saying that these kids, most of them passed the government exam because they ate well, and when they ate well, they slept well and studied well.
Wow. The basic
Honestly,
necessities. Yeah.
yes. And then this is just 2, 3 countries. Another one was Ukraine. I went there to visit the refugees, so refugees and orphans. And because of the Crimean War with
Mm,
Russia, Ukraine suffered a lot on the East Coast because it's bordering with Russia. And I went to the East, which is 1 hour away from Russia. And there we built a school and other schools for the Ukrainian children, and I visited the refugee camp. It's just children, are innocent, sometimes without parents, what have no fault of their own.
Hmm.
But when this is just some of the countries where they have refugees. But then in my country of Jordan, the first thing I did is help the Palestinian refugees in Amman, Jordan, by sending them to school. You
Hmm.
can feed them and so on, just temporary. But education is their future. So I believe in education. So far, we have built 23 schools.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so let's put a pin in that because we need to talk about Restore a Child because you're talking about your work through Restore a Child. But for what I'm hearing is that um when there's civil war and when there's unrest, oftentimes it's education and basic necessities like food and sleep that the children are often lacking. And
Yes,
because they don't have those necessities, they're unable to go to school. And
yes,
so that's a void or that's a bridge that you are passionate about mending, like giving them food so they can sleep well. That was powerful. They're passing exams because
yes,
you're feeding them, and because they're feeding them, they're sleeping. Because they're sleeping, they can perform academically.
yes.
That's
I
incredible.
was surprised when I got the letter.
Yeah.
The government.
Okay. So you remember at 12 years old, basically doing your own school, like a mini school after school program. So
Yes,
when did you then, because you have this organization called Restore a Child, when did that officially come about, and was there anything in between, when you were growing up? Did you try to do other things, or when did you get the inspiration to start Restore a Child?
yes. Always try to find opportunities where I can, impact children's lives by teaching them and do whatever I can for them in many countries where I lived, because I lived in many countries in the Middle East. But then when I came to the US and then I got the cancer, I
Mm,
knew I needed to give my life to these children, not just to help them, not enough. I needed to dedicate my life, which means I left my job. I was working at the General Conference, and I, I had no husband to take care of me, no medical insurance. I
wow.
had cancer, but and I had no insurance. I didn't care. I said, God will take care of me.
Hmm.
Because in the Bible, we are taught, says, why do you worry about what you're going to eat and what you are going to wear? I will take care of you, God said. And I believe that.
Yeah.
And till now, 23 years, and I didn't lack anything.
Hmm.
So this is when I started Restore a Child.
Wow. Okay. So what was your first endeavor, your first um the first children or group of
Yes.
kids that you wanted to help? Once you started Restore a Child, what was the first thing that you did?
You know, it came before the name Restore a Child.
Okay.
When I had cancer, I went back home because I thought I might not live,
Mm,
cancer, you never know. I wanted to say goodbye to my family and friends and see my country. So I went there and
wow.
I went to the school that I used to clean when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I just wanted to visit. And there, as soon as I came in, I found two children crying and leaving the school.
Mm,
So I said, okay, stop here. I didn't want them to leave, young. They were like 7 and 8 or something like that. And I asked the assistant principal there in the school, why are you sending these kids home? She said, because they don't have money to pay. What?
oh,
I said, you punish children because
mm,
they are poor.
mm,
What do you want from them? $500 for each. I said, no problem. Right away, I paid it. I had
wow.
to. the children need to be in school and stay in school. And so in my mind, I said, I'm sure there are many other kids like that. I didn't see them because I didn't stay too long. But on the plane, I knew what I needed to do. And it happened to be these two are Palestinian refugee children. But when the Iraq war started, I had to. These refugees came from Iraq, parents with PhDs, master's degree, educated. They have no jobs, no homes. Children can't go to school. They have nothing. How can I not help the children? At least send them to school. And then the same after the Syrian war, we help the Syrian refugees. Wherever there's a poor child, we help really, regardless of ethnicity, color, uh, whatever background they have, or religious affiliation. We never ask, it doesn't matter. When a child needs help and we can help them, we help.
Wow. So it seems like for the past, you said 23 years?
Yes.
For the past 23 years, you seem to have this antenna of wherever there is substantial need for children, when their education has been disrupted, when their lives, first of all, when their lives have been disrupted, and then as a result, their security and their education is disrupted, your antennas go up and you say, how can I help?
Yes.
Wow.
I really want to help hundreds of thousands. I just need the money.
Yeah.
Money.
So how do you choose? Because those needs are constant. It seems, there's so much happening in the world, and there's so many, as you mentioned, you want to help hundreds of thousands. There's so many children in need. How do you pick where to go? How do you pick, at a time? Because the need is overwhelming, but you're only, we're all limited in all that we can do. But how do you decide where to go?
Yes, it's always, you need, or, when I want to work in somewhere, I need to find trusted people I can work with because this is money. And poverty teaches people to, take some of that money. Not trust anybody. They are poor. They need money to feed themselves and so on. So I go first there. And honestly, I do work with the church because they are the local churches. And
Okay,
then
local Adventist churches or local Christian churches?
no
Okay.
Adventist churches because I'm an Adventist. And so I go there and then get to know some people and find the needs. And then if I feel comfortable doing, working with somebody, then we can pursue it. But also I chose my board of directors, we chose them, mostly from the headquarters where they travel all the time.
For the headquarters from the GC, from the General Conference, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and they travel a lot.
Most of them are from there. So they travel a lot. And so when they go, they save me time and money. Travel is costly.
Right.
And then it's safe. We can send funds through them with them. And they bring me back reports and photos that I need. But it doesn't mean that I don't travel. I do travel like 3-4 times a year, except last year.
Right.
The pandemic. But I'm going now in August. I'm going to Africa. I have to. I cannot stay away from children. These are my children.
Yeah.
I think they are mine. I love them so much.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say that, first of all, find the trusted people you can work in those countries.
And when you go there, because I know, and just my understanding of your work, so sometimes you're building schools.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how many schools have you been able to build?
Yeah. So far we have built 23 schools.
In which countries? You don't have to name all of them, but
we do help like 2,500 children to go to Adventist schools to get good education. Pay for their food, we pay for their tuition and so on. But the children, the schools that we built are in Ukraine. We built 4 schools. In South Sudan, we built one, general vocational training, because after the war, everything was destroyed. So they have nothing to do. They are on the streets. They need to work. So we're teaching them agriculture, carpentry, whatever, to give them tools to survive. And then we built a school in the refugee camp for South Sudan. But it's not in South Sudan because they had fled the the conflict, and they had no even fathers. They were killed. So some of them with widows, some of them alone, kids alone, traveling all the way from South Sudan to the northern part of uh, Uganda. So there's a refugee camp there just for South Sudanese. And there, I heard and I had pictures and people reported to me how they have no books. They sit in the dirt. They have no pencil to write. And this is education. The There's no walls for the school. For the school,
Wow.
the roofs are plastic. Half of them are torn. It's not a situation that I can live with. So we remodeled the school. We built we around it and everything, but then we built another stable cement regular school for them. So that's what we did for South Sudan refugee camp. And then we built one school in Haiti. Now we have 200 children in Haiti.
Wow.
Amazing
Wow.
school. Yeah, and then let me see what else. Yeah, just last 2 weeks in Sierra Leone, Chad, and 2, 3 schools one for the Maasai girls, and then another one in Dar es Salaam. It's just
Wow. Wow. So let me ask you this, because obviously your heart is in this and you were born to do this. But what role does your faith play, especially when it seems like there's such need, thinking about the kids who were sitting in the dirt with the plastic, like I can imagine when you're there, it's heartbreaking.
it is.
Like you want to connect with the kids and you want to do so much more. So what do you lean on when it seems, when the disparity is so great? What do you lean on? What role does your faith play? How do you keep going?
My trust in God.
Mm.
And like my upbringing, the poverty I passed through, and the hard work, and this helped me, gave me the strength to be resilient. I cannot stop. I cannot be discouraged. Although sometimes I felt like I want to stop at the beginning. It's a lot of work, and then you find people trying to attack you. Obstacles. For 20 years, I did not take any salary or stipend. I said, how can I take money? Although the board voted for me, I said, the money comes for kids, not for me. I
Wow.
have the heart for these kids. And so that's why we can do so much as a small organization, because 100% of donations go to children. I have two friends who cover the limited overhead. So everything, which I don't know how many ministries or organizations can really prove that they don't spend I travel. I never stayed in a hotel. I don't take a taxi. I paid for my own food.
Wow.
Don't report anything. The money is not for me. The money is for the children, and this is our strength. People trust us, so now we're growing every year. Uh,
So how many people, you mentioned your two friends, but how many people work for Restore a Child with you?
I have one,
Okay.
Dr. Turner, is
Yeah.
our director of development. But in the countries, I cannot be doing the work by myself for sure.
Right.
I have partners, directors of the projects, and more
Okay.
of them are missionaries and so on. It's amazing. Both in where I'm going in August, the two of them are from Germany. They have given their life for this.
Mm.
It's
Wow.
God. It's God's work. It's not me. There is no way. I don't have even college education. When my father died, one American missionary took me to their home. And although my mom was my role model and she was the main one who influenced my life, but this American family who took me to their home for 8 years, I went to middle school, high school, and 2 years of college, and they wanted me to finish, but my mom became blind. She told me, you have to come back and help me with your siblings, and was very happy to help my mom. So I didn't finish. No training, no nothing. What do I have?
Hmm.
But God provided everything. When God calls you for something and you are willingly and you are available with all your heart to do His will, He will provide the resources, the expertise, and the people and everything you need. And He did for me. He can do
Yeah.
it for you.
Amen. I received that. So, what would you say to somebody who has a similar passion as you, but is unable to go to these different places around the world for whatever reason? How can someone, what would you tell someone who wants to help? How could somebody help these children?
Yes, many people have in their heart good intentions.
Yeah.
They want to help. But they have to study first.
Mm.
Then they have to get married. Then children, then grandchildren. You know how it is. Time goes, and they cannot, commit, and they cannot do what they really have in their heart to do. So I say you cannot, wait until it's too late.
Hmm.
And if you cannot go, there are people like me who go
Mm-hmm.
and others. And you need to not make sure your money goes to children. So you cannot go to help a child, but you can help somebody to go. Somebody wrote my book
Mm-hmm.
called. Have you read it?
No, I haven't, but you told me about your book and even a film that's being made about you.
Yes, and a film that will be coming maybe end of August, September.
Of this year.
Yeah, of this year. The film is called Shadow Child, and the book is my name, Norma,
Mm-hmm.
beyond their tears, because I
Mm.
see beyond their tears. Maybe they are dirty, they are crying, they are helpless, but I see what they could become if I give them a chance.
Yeah.
These are the doctors, the engineers, the scientists, the teachers of the future. Really, we're gone, all of us, you, me. One day,
Yeah.
these children are the future. If you invest in them, you invest in
Mm-hmm.
your own future, your
Mm-hmm.
country and your family and the world.
Wow. That's so true. What do you have any final thoughts? Thank you again for actually, where can somebody find your book and also see the film about you
Yes,
in the fall?
yes. It's on our website,
Okay.
restoreachild.org.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they can write to me. My email is norma at restoreachild.org. It's easy.
Very easy. So thank you again for sharing your story and your passion. Are there any final thoughts you would like to add? Maybe not just about your work, but your thoughts about where you're from, your homeland, any parting words.
Yes. You know, um, all humans have rights, human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Children have rights too. And so their basic human rights is for food, water, health, education, and of course later gender equality and so on. But the main things are these four. And this is what we can't deny it, that our Savior mentioned it, that in the judgment, what he will be asking in the judgment day, which not only we as Christians believe in, the Jews do, the Muslims do, we will be asked, I was hungry, I was thirsty, I was sick, I was naked. And then he said, go and teach. So this is the 5 areas Restore a Child provides for children.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again, Norma.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of NewsPoints on the Air, a production of the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists. Just so you're aware, we have 1, maybe 2 more episodes left for this season, season 1. Then season 2 will be back later this year. All right. NewsPoints on the Air is edited, produced, and hosted by me, Milan Medley. Executive producers are Dan Weber, Julio Munoz, and Kimberly Moran. Graphics are by Jonathan Lapointe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So listen and subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, nothing less, and write a glowing review. And speaking of subscribe, you guys hear me say this with every episode, you must subscribe to NewsPoints. It's our weekly digital newsletter. It's our news service, really, that contains ministry announcements, special announcements, I should say ministry resources, special announcements, and news stories. It's your one-stop shop for keeping up with our division and our news. We have a lot going on in our division, folks. Now, I'm not going to get into it here because if you were following NewsPoints, if it was in your inbox, you would already know. So make sure you subscribe by going to nadadventist.org and clicking on news. If you need to reach me, send an email to ontheair@nadadventist.org. That's ontheair@nadadventist.org. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time.